Brothers and sisters, oh wait, that's Sunday's talk. Time for Peoria-North Jeopardy, right?
Yep.
Fellow Peoria High alum, class of 92, after me, by the way, significantly, has an associate's degree in fire science from Illinois Central College, go Cougars, and a bachelor's from Columbia Southern University in fire administration, investigation, and analysis. He started with the Peoria Fire Department in 1998, third generation firefighter. And so he's been in the family business a long time. Well, he's young, so it's not a long time. He worked his way up through the ranks and has been part of the dive, hazmat, and technical rescue teams. August of 2022, so a little over a year, about a year and a half ago, he was sworn in as Peoria's fire chief. He's been serving on Local 50 Executive Board for 16 years. He's been married happily for 28 years to another Peoria native, Angela Bushman. They have 3 children, Jake, who's a laborer's apprentice, Jenna, who's a senior or a freshman at University of Iowa, and Julia, that's right, and in nursing. And Julia, who's a senior at Dunlap. And the question is,
who is Shawn Sollberger, fire chief?
You get the $2. Let's welcome Shawn.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. You guys are a great group. Not intimidating at all. I apologize. I do have to apologize as well for my PowerPoint presentation, which was crafted last year, obviously, but it is 2024.
11 days.
So, thank you for the introduction. That it is definitely a brief synopsis of, I'm very proud to say, and I've been saying this since I've had the ability to talk about it, being born and raised in the city of Peoria. That's not totally accurate. My parents both graduated from Manual. My father was in the service, and I was born in Omaha. So I was there for about 5 months before he came home. I believe in the city of Peoria. I love this area. Went to school at Peoria High, went to ICC, and that's where I had the pleasure of meeting my wife. I love plugging her. She's definitely the strength of our family by far, and my three children. And the city of Peoria, the fire department, it's extremely rewarding being a public servant. And I know a lot of people see it, and it's rightfully so. We do get paid well. We do have good benefits. We do have a pension. That was never a driving force for me, just to give you a little bit of a history about myself. Though I was always very cognizant of those things, but I always just wanted to be a part of a strong team. And Peoria Fire Department, the men and women of that department, I just was naturally drawn to it. And just the ability to serve. I wasn't in the military, but I did come from a military background with my grandfather and my father. And it's a very addicting job. When someone calls 911, it's their worst day. And it could be anything from a stubbed toe to a cardiac arrest and pretty much everything that's in between. And when people invite you into their home, whether that's through a 911 call or just through dispatch, there's certain expectations. They want you to be the smartest, brightest, strongest, the most able person in whatever it is that they're asking you to do. And that's, to me, to a person, that's very rewarding. And it's also very humbling because you're challenged almost on a daily basis on something that you did not know. And then you go back to the firehouse and you learn and you educate and you train. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of a brief description on what we encounter. Some people look at third generation, this was probably just natural. You were going to be a firefighter. I did not grow up in that type of house. My grandfather was an interim fire chief in the 1980s. My father had the pleasure of, with good health and retiring 11 years ago from the fire department as a battalion chief. And we were a very sports-oriented family, baseball, basketball, football, and fire service. It was a job. We were very community-oriented, but it wasn't, hey, you're going to be a firefighter. Through my life, at the mere age of 12, when my realization that I wasn't going to be a professional professional baseball player come crashing down, my father challenged me when I was 19 and I was playing baseball at ICC. he said, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I thought it was going to be a physical therapist or an athletic trainer, and I dabbled in that a little bit. So he said, hey, we have a ride-along program through ICC. I was very manipulative at that age. I thought this is very easy. I can get 1 college credit hour. I'll do this ride-along program. The danger in that is the first day, and I saw what these men and women of this fire department experienced on a daily basis. I rode along for 12 hours, and it just drew me in very naturally, and I'm proud to say that. So I'll get going on the PowerPoint presentation, and basically this is just going to give us a brief understanding of the history of our fire department, what we currently have, and potentially where we're going. Maybe. That didn't start off great, did it?
It's far.
E6.
Oh,
E6.
there we go. So like most paid professional fire departments, we come from voluntary background. In 1875, the Peoria Fire Department formalized as a professional paid fire department. We had one fire station that was downtown, and it was on Monroe Street, not anywhere near where it is now, but that's how it all started. The second central fire station was where Peoria Civic Center sits now. And where we've grown to this day, and it's evolved over time, but we have 12 fire stations strategically located throughout the city, and that's all based off of heat maps, demographics, call volume, things of that nature, is where do we put our fire stations, knowing that it's very difficult to move a fire station, right, and the costs that are associated with that, and we'll get further into that into the presentation. Here's a map that shows the 12 fire stations that we have. We have 2 battalions in the city of Peoria relative to the fire department, and our line of demarcation is McClure. So everything south of McClure Street is considered Battalion 1, and that's labeled as the fire district. That's where we generally get the most fires in the city of Peoria, naturally, because that's where a lot of your older neighborhoods are. Everything north of McClure Street is considered Battalion 3. And so you'll see that there's 7 fire stations south of McClure, and there's 5 fire stations north of McClure. And like I said, they're all strategically located to give us the most effective response. We try to get to all working fires within 4 minutes with the first water on the scene, and then overall response, which is 17 firefighters on the scene, within 8 minutes. And we have a 71% success rate based off of 2022 and 2023 data. But we're always achieving to do better. One of the things that we like talking about too, anybody know what traffic signal preemption is? Right? So I have the green light. What the hell? Now I don't. It's red. We have traffic signal preemption on our 12 engines, 3 trucks, and 1 rescue squad, and our 2 battalion chiefs. So when we're going to that emergency, it gives us the ability to get there as fast as humanly possible. But we have to abide by the rules of the road to the best of our ability. If you see emergency lights, get to the right. That's the best recommendation I can give you. That's the way that I was brought into driving. You know, when I was 16 years old, I think that message has slowly kind of gone away and watered down. This is what we experience now. Stop, speed up, left lane, right lane, shoulder, doesn't matter. The best recommendation that I could give you, and if you could pass this message on, whether that's a police officer, a fire truck, an ambulance, if you do see lights, try to get to the right. That probably wasn't the best time to plug that, sorry. This is our small command staff. We have a fire department of 187 commissioned firefighters led by 5 people. Myself, as the fire chief, we have an assistant chief and 3 division chiefs, and that's operations, prevention, and training, and I'll get into that further as well. As I mentioned, just a command staff of 5, it's very challenging. Our call volume is 21,000 calls, and that's not a badge of honor. That's just data and the way that we have this. 83% of our calls are medically driven, and we'll get further into that as well. So breaking these duties and responsibilities up amongst a small command staff is very challenging. Wow, sorry. Breaking down our command staff, I have had the pleasure since the fall of 2022 to lead this fire department, rising through the ranks, doing all positions within our department has helped me to best serve the community. My number one responsibility, my ultimate responsibility is budget. I have to stay on budget. This year, my budget is $26.2 million. And that includes benefits for all the firefighters, work comp related insurance, fuel costs for the apparatus, and basically everything that it takes to run a fire department. But things of this nature, I take these things very seriously. I think that you need to be out in the community. You need to have a stronger understanding of your fire department and the services that you provide, so that when people have an emergency, that they know what their fire department is capable of. This is also a graduate of Peoria High, 1992. This is a classmate of mine, Tony Cummings. That is not the reason why I promoted him to assistant chief. Tony is probably one of the smartest individuals that I've ever met. He's going for his doctorate right now in administration. And Tony has been a paramedic within the Peoria system for over 26 years. He's been employed by the city of Peoria for the last 23. And the level of expertise that Tony provides us and command presence has just led us into the future. Our ALS program, we have 12 fire stations with 12 ALS engines. So there's a paramedic staffed at every single fire station 24 hours a day. And Tony is in charge of that program. Lori Baxter, she was a classmate of mine, not in high school, but we both got hired on the fire department at the same time. I'm sure you guys are starting to see some parallels. Shawn promotes all of his friends. That's not true. It has been an absolute pleasure to have Lori in our space. It took a lot of convincing on my part for her to come up to command, because it's a big jump. You go from a 24-hour operation where you're off 48 hours, and then now, and when they say 40 hours, that is laughable. To convince somebody to come up to management, small command staff, and all the work that's associated with that. She hit the ground running. Every fire chief, probably for the last 30 years, if my memory serves me correctly, has served in this capacity, and I did as well. The division chief of operations pretty much runs everything. And when I say that, all the daily operations, all the responses through the fire stations, running the facilities, all of the gear, all of the equipment, everything runs through the division chief of operations. And Lori's been in that capacity since February of last year. Our division chief of training, has anybody been down Galena Road maybe in the last 6 months? We've been doing an astronomical amount of work down at our training tower. We had the ability, working with the city manager, to create CIP projects to improve our training facility. And we had not done improvements down at our training tower in decades. And what we've experienced over the course of time, there's only 3 training facilities in the state of Illinois. One's in Romeoville, one's in Champaign, which is the Nike, the standard for our state, and then us. And so we started getting a lot of requests, not just locally. We're training firefighters from Danville, from Kewanee, from Pontiac, to so many different places, because it's hard. Everybody has to stay within budget. You know, you try to remain as close to your facilities as much as possible, because it alleviates concerns with fuel and travel and all the expenses associated with that. And Roland Tinley, I love promoting the fact that he was nominated and awarded the Fire Instructor of the Year last year. And he has a very small staff down there. He has 1 administrative assistant and 2 captains that are down there that serve as fire instructors. And when we say fire instructor, it really doesn't give them much justice as to what they actually do. In my 26, soon to be 26-year career, fire service has changed. You know, being an EMT, being a paramedic, being a vehicle machinery operator, being a firefighter, all of these things, all of the specialty teams, our dive teams, our technical rescue team, hazardous materials, all these things, they all get trained and educated through our training tower. So they do an exceptional job down there with a small staff. And our division chief of prevention, anybody own a small business? You probably had to deal with Chief Rice's division and Charlie Perrin, who works in life safety code. And we like to say Chief Rice commands a division. He works in the shadows. This is probably the most unglorious position that you could possibly craft in regard to code, fire investigation, prevention, education in regards to the public and schools and things like that. And Nate is the best person for the job. This is the master's degree that he has is in public education and training. And he does an exceptional job. Our fire investigators, we like saying as well, is that they're peace officers. So they do carry a firearm, they do have arresting rights, and that's not the reason why we bring that up. What that does is that gives them the ability to investigate arson. Arson is a crime, and not every fire department in the state has that. So we do have 2 fire investigators that Chief Rice is in charge of. Our battalion chiefs, as I described, we have Battalion 1 and Battalion 3. So we have 2 shift supervisors every day, 24 hours a day. So we have a total of 6 battalion chiefs that work on shift, and then they rotate through. And they report directly to the Division Chief of Operations. Our responses, as we said, consistently over the last 2 years, we've responded to close to 22,000 calls. 84%, 83 to 84% of those calls were medically driven. And a lot of times when you talk about these things, I hope that people do not misinterpret. This is just data. This is not information that we walk around saying, that we're proud of the fact that we go to 22,000 calls or that we went to 583 fires last year, half of which were cooking fires. We're trying to prevent those things. So working with Chief Rice through that Prevention Bureau, we just landed a really good community risk reduction project, which is CRR. We try to put as much information out there about it as we could. But we worked with a company called Vision 2020, and they're working with PHA currently right now. And we're trying to reduce the risk of cooking fires. And to do that, there's a product out there called Smart Burners. And if you think I'm full of, what, when you leave here, if you're bored, you can look up Smart Burners. And what we have learned over the course of time throughout the whole country, when smart burners are installed into multi-family dwellings, so your high rises, some of our housing projects that we have in town, that number goes to 0. So the first project that we're doing is Sterling Towers, which is right off of at Sterling and Richwoods. And we're going to take that establishment and we're going to put smart burners in there and then run the analysis for the next 2 years on the reduction of cooking fires. Mutual aid. This is a big part of what we do. And I think a lot of people within this community or surrounding communities are not aware of this. We're the only paid fire department outside of East Peoria in this general area. So Peoria County, we're the only paid fire department. So we work hand in hand with other volunteer fire departments, not just for fire response, but also for medical response as well. So we have West Peoria Fire Department. We just signed an intergovernmental agreement with them last year because they had needs in regards to EMS support. Knowing that we have this many paramedics within our space, they'll call us when needed. If that's a cardiac arrest or a gunshot victim, things of that nature, West Peoria will call us. We'll supply them with a paramedic and then they ride into the hospital together. But on the fire side, we're surrounded by Dunlap, Peoria Heights, West Peoria, Limestone, Bartonville, all these communities. And if you haven't followed that trend over the course of time, and I don't think it's really isolated to just volunteering for fire service, volunteerism across this country is down. I coached Dunlap JFL for 9 years. I coached basketball, coached wrestling, all these things, like even just people volunteering to coach is way down. So we're not shocked at all that communities are really struggling with volunteerism. So we try to help them upon request on plugging those gaps when they need our help. I kind of loosely talked about some of these things. When I came on the job 26 years ago, we had one specialty team, and that was hazardous materials. And we had that since, I think, 1985. And we were the largest hazmat team south of I-80. So basically outside of the Chicago limits, we had the largest hazardous materials team. And that's still true to this day. Well, almost shortly when I came on in the late 90s, we started an underwater rescue team. We had an unfortunate dive accident or bridge failure. Iron workers perished in that. And at that time, we were going through dive training. And then in an instant, we had a dive team. We had equipment, we had some limited training. And then from that point forward, after that bridge failure, that collapse, our dive team really took off from there. Shortly thereafter, we started a technical rescue team. So some people may be thinking, what's technical rescue? That's all of your high angle, confined space, trench, structural collapse. We have all of the equipment, training, personnel necessary to perform those functions. And over time, too, people have asked, why do you have that? We don't go on a hazardous materials call every day. We don't go on a confined space call every day. But this is what we do know, is that call is still going to happen. Someone's still going to call 911, and we're going to go. So our choices is that we can have trained, educated, equipped firefighters responding to that scene, or we can have ill-equipped, uneducated firefighters still responding to that scene, which creates a dangerous situation for the person that you're trying to help and also the firefighters on the scene. Hazardous materials team, as I mentioned, we're the largest downstate hazardous materials team. One of the big significant events that we had in 2022, if you followed it at all, was Peoria. And that was a really strong example. While that ended up not being hazardous materials, the reason why we bring that up is that we work hand in hand with them almost on a daily basis in regards to hazardous materials and technical rescue. They had the largest amount of confined space entry in the city of Peoria. They're required to list us as the responding unit. So we work with them in regards to facility tours and having a stronger understanding of Peoria, which is formerly Archer Daniels Midland. Talking about our dive team, we have a major river that goes right through our town. Most people don't realize that the Illinois River is labeled as swift water rescue. I was a diver myself, got trained from the beginning of this, and diving in the Illinois River is not fun. It has its challenges, and when the locks are down, that current is strong, very strong. But still, once again, we have a lot of calls in the city of Peoria for water rescue. And there's more water in the city of Peoria, and I won't bore you on end as to how many bodies of water there are, but there's a significant amount of ponds and lakes in our town and surrounding areas. So when we get back to that mutual aid portion of this, other communities, police agencies, they recognize the fact too that we're the only dive team outside of Fond du Lac Park District has one diver, and then there's us. We used to have DNR on the water. We used to have other agencies that were on the water. Well, those boats are no longer exist. Those resources are either north or south of us. So if there's a water emergency in the city of Peoria, the surrounding communities, we're going. This was a pretty unique thing. So when I was going through my awkward phase of an interim, and everyone's coming to me within our space, and they have all these unique ideas, I'm still trying to get a job. And now all of a sudden we want to have dogs. And I challenged, when they came to me, and it was Josh Harris and Brad Pearson, who are our arson investigators. There's only 2 fire departments in the state of Illinois that had arson detection dogs, which is accelerant detection dogs. And it was a very unique concept. I challenged them to get as much information as possible, get a presentation together so that I can crawl to the city manager and convince him as to why this is a good idea. And it is. We secured private funding. We bought the best dogs that you could possibly get, the same dogs. I hate saying the name because I always butcher it, but they're Belgian Malinois. Yes. Extremely intelligent dogs. And I am just wowed almost on a daily basis when I see them act in their function. Both of them are certified now. Josh Harris's dog, her name is Molly, and she is going to be certified this year with ATF. And if a lot of people don't realize how big of a deal that is, how they're going to be working with police agencies, working with the FBI, potentially working with ATF on anything significant in our area or our region. So we're very proud of that. Our fire garage. So when you go down University and it turns into MacArthur and you go down the hill, there's a fire station right there at 832 West Hurlburt. And attached to that fire station is a unique concept. It's a fire garage. Some people will be like, what do you need a fire garage for? Surprisingly enough, we do need service, maintenance, and repair. And we have 2 wonderful fire mechanics that work in that garage. And we educate them, we train them into the specialties of fire apparatus. And Colton and Shane do an exceptional job. So much so that now East Peoria, potentially Chillicothe, Pekin, all these other communities, they're reaching out to us based off of the expertise of Colton and Shane. 2023 projects. So this wonderful man, William Preston, to the left of me, came to me in January of 2022. Once again, going through an interim phase and all these unique concepts. Like, you have to be really careful on where you're going, what you're doing, who's going to agree with you, and things of that nature. Well, I took that careful cape off and I kind of set it on the chair, and William Preston came to me with a concept of us creating a fire chaplain program. Now, it wasn't unique in the sense that police already had it. When he came to me and said, hey, I think we can mirror these same energies with the fire department. Well, just like everybody else, I got on Google, typed in fire department chaplain programs, and I couldn't find anything. And while that may deter some people, I thought, man, this could potentially be a very unique concept. And as Pastor Preston and myself and another Pastor Martin Johnson, we explored this whole concept. What we're proud to say is what has been formalized starting in the fall of last year is we have a fire chaplain assigned to all 12 fire stations in the city of Peoria. Now, you may be asking, what does that mean? Why? We have 3 firefighters 24 hours a day in every single fire station, no matter what. Some have 6, some have 3, most have 3. The challenges that they face on a daily basis, all the things that I described up to this point, and it can wear on you mentally, it can wear on you physically, and all this person does is provide them a resource. It doesn't have to be faith-based, it's just another person within the community and these community partners so that our firefighters can be as good as they could possibly be. That's one facet of it. The other part of it is that if we have church groups, pastors, volunteers, whoever it is that want to work with the firefighters in their area, they potentially know the person. They potentially know the family. We go to chaotic scenes, whether that's a stabbing, shooting, house fire, a cardiac arrest, whatever it may be, and the families are very emotional and things can be very chaotic during that time. And if you have a person that potentially can come in and allow us to do our jobs, but then be able to help the family in regards to that call. We're as excited as you could be about accreditation, right? That somebody's in your space for 2+ years, analyzing, breaking down every single thing that you do, and then to validate as to why. Keynote the things that you're really good at, and then emphasis on the areas that you need to work on. We started this process in 2018. We were near the finish line, almost could touch it, and budget cuts happened, and we stopped the accreditation process. While that was not ideal, we did not have to go all the way back to the start. We just basically had to hit the reset button, and we're proud of the fact that we're going to go in front of the commission fall of this year. So if we can end up as an accredited fire department, it's going to help us provide the best services to you. New Fire Station 4, anybody been down Western Hill? See the new fire station? We had the oldest fire station almost in the state of Illinois at 2711 Southwest Jefferson. It was a crumbling infrastructure. So we knew that we had to rebuild that. So the year before COVID hit, it was earmarked for Fire Station 4 and Fire Station 16 to get rebuilt. COVID hit, budget cuts. We still did Fire Station 4, but we stopped on Fire Station 16, and I'll get into that further. So we named Fire Station 4 Edward B. Gaines Jr. Fire Station 4, and that was for the first African-American firefighter in the city of Peoria. And new Fire Station 16, so the fire station that's just down the street from Richwoods High School on Northmore is a very unique firehouse. It was donated to us by Richwoods Fire Protection District back in the 1950s, and it needs to be replaced. It's pretty bad. It's lived its serviceable life. So what we're going to do is, it's a very unique project. We're going to demo on site and then rebuild in its exact location. And it's going to be extremely challenging. We just had our first meeting yesterday with the design and architects on how we're going to accomplish that. So if anybody's ever seen the landscape there's kind of some rolling hills. We have underground fuel storage. I'm sure there's asbestos in there. All the challenges that are associated with demolition we're going to incur, and we'll be doing that project this year. So Fire Station 16 houses Engine 16 and Truck 14. Those resources will be dispersed to engine 19, which is off of Frostworth, and then engine 15 off of Detweiler. All right. I didn't talk you guys to sleep yet, right? All right. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Hey, Chief, when you have mutual aid, for instance, if you help West Peoria or the Heights or someplace like that, is there some financial responsibility or payback for that?
There is. On the EMS side, yes. So we do charge for our paramedic services. We are unable at this time to charge for fire-related services due to the state of Illinois and state law. There's a MABUS. Anybody know what MABUS is? Mutual Aid Box Alarm System. So it was created up in Chicago. So you have a lot of smaller fire departments with limited resources, and they kind of lean on each other. So if they get a significant event, they'll call a MABUS box, and all of the fire departments in that area will respond to mitigate, whether that's a fire or a car accident, whatever the case may be. Well, MABUS, post 9/11, kind of trickled down into the rest of the state of Illinois. So if we do get a fire response mutual aid, we do not charge for that. But the EMS side, we do.
Hi, Chief. Thanks for being here. My husband serves on the board of directors for the Washington Fire Department, and he wanted me to ask about how you guys are handling what seems to be a lack of interest in going into the EMS program.
That is most definitely a challenge. I'm so challenging. I had to speak with two of our firefighters today. It really is. So when I was breaking it, because you really only know what you know, right? And so over the course of my career, just being a firefighter was extreme. There were so many people that wanted to be a firefighter, right? You had hundreds. You'd go into the civic center and you'd take your written test. And I'm getting to a point is most of the people who were there were EMTs or paramedics or nurses, or they already had that background because that's what was required. It was very, very competitive. So you had to be able to kind of separate yourselves from the rest of the people. Now what we're experiencing is the reverse of that. When we run our fall or spring recruit classes down there with Chief Tinley, we may have one EMT and you have a recruit class of 12. So the challenge is almost double. Now you have to train people to EMT. They don't have the experience. They don't have the bedside manners. So it's very challenging. And then add on top of that, now, hey, Shawn's really talking about us providing ALS and paramedic. So now they're coming into your space. They're not even EMTs. And then at some point during the course of the career, we have to train them to paramedic, which is another 18 to 24 month process. So to answer that accurately, it's extremely challenging.
This is just ignorance on my part, but if you have a home medical emergency like cardiac arrest or slip and fall on ice, why does the fire department have to go there?
No, that's a great question. That's the same question that's been asked over the course of time. So Peoria area EMS, we all fall under Dr. Matt Jackson. He's our project medical director. So we all sit down, whether that's Advanced Medical Transport, which is your ambulance provider in the city of Peoria and surrounding communities, Peoria Fire Department, OSF, Carl now, we all sit down. What is the best EMS response model that you can possibly get? And everyone's challenged with resources, manpower, how do you strategically locate? And so we have 12 static locations per contract. AMT is supposed to have at least 5 ambulances in the city of Peoria. And then we go through our call volume quarterly on what calls we should go on, what calls they should go on, what calls both of us should go on. And that's a little relative to police as well. But we go through that response model on a quarterly basis. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. And so where it's changed, so in my 26-year career, we went on less because we were only EMTBs. Well, then as we start to educate and train, and now we can provide a higher medical level, we're asked to go on more. So you can see some people look at it as a duplication of service. It's not. When you get a full arrest, it's all hands on deck. You'll have one person doing chest compressions, one person's doing respirations, another person's hooking them up to the defib, another person's in contact with medical control, the other person's starting the IV, someone else is now securing an airway. So it takes, we call it cockpit CPR. It's because you just need so many people and it has to be very well coordinated. And unfortunately, we get a lot of full arrests. And in the city of Peoria, we get a lot of shootings and stabbings. And so you have those higher level of medical care calls that happen on a 911 call. And not every community experiences that. So then as we go through that response model, we've had that question before too, where some people ask, why does a fire truck have to be on a car accident? Well, the cops actually prefer that big red tank is there kind of protecting everybody. First responders, unfortunately, do get hit on roadways. So that's not the reason why we respond, but it does help that we do have the ability to block that roadway with our fire apparatus. Hopefully that answered that.
I live at Apostolic Skyline Retirement Community, so you're our neighbors. They're on the corner. What do you guys do down there?
We're just messing around. No, we do a lot. The Fire Station 17, which used to be manned, I believe back in the late 80s, early 90s, and then it was shuttered due to budget cuts. We use that Fire Station 17, which is in your backyard, and that's where we use as a training annex. So when we train other people's firefighters, we have to be able to, we don't have to, but it makes most sense that they can stay on site. So we use that fire station and we house them. There's a kitchen in there. We have a workout room. We have extractors and dryers, and we use those to clean their fire gear. So when they're training across the street, then they can bring that gear back and train it and stay as safe as humanly possible. So when I went through training, it was called 200-hour class. So it was 5 weeks. Now we have grown due to the demands of training and education. It's 12 weeks. And that's saying that you're an EMT. If you're not an EMT, that's an additional 6 weeks. So then it's 18 weeks of training. So you probably see a lot of activity in and out of it, whether the Galena Road, which is our training tower, or Skyline.
And at night, there's lights on there at night.
Mm-hmm. So that's generally probably during our recruit phase. So when we have firefighters who are staying there, and I'm sure that they're being good. Right? Within those spaces, I'm sure they're not doing anything wrong. So you probably see lights on there more now than you ever have, because the firefighters, if they're from, like we just trained 6 Danville firefighters, and they stayed at Station 17 during that 12-week process.
All right.